Georgia Championship Wrestling was a professional wrestling promotion whose self-titled TV program aired in the 1970s and 1980s on Atlanta Superstation WTBS. Though based in Atlanta, the company also ran live wrestling shows through its geographic territory of Georgia. The territory was affiliated with what had been the world's top sanctioning body of championship titles for decades, the National Wrestling Alliance.
Championship Wrestling, we've got a couple very...
It was 1944. As the Batman and Robin comic strip premiered in newspapers everywhere, Royal Air Force gunner Nicholas Alcemade fell 18,000 feet out of a plane without a parachute over Nazi Germany and lived to tell about it. The Montreal Canadiens swept the Chicago Blackhawks in 4 games straight in the Stanley Cup Finals. The St. Louis Cardinals beat the St. Louis Browns at Sportsman's Park in the 1944 World Series. And Georgia Championship Wrestling was formed in Atlanta by promoter Paul Jones as ABC Booking. ABC held its matches at Atlanta's Municipal Auditorium every Friday night. Jones operated ABC for 30 years until his retirement in 1974. Though from the 1960s until 1972, he was assisted by his booker, Ray Gunkel. In fact, Jones was so infirm by this time that Gunkel effectively ran the promotion. On Christmas Day of 1971, Georgia Championship Wrestling aired its first television show, which was considered a Christmas special, since the actual series didn't begin airing until late January 1972. This would also be the start of a yearly tradition where the wrestlers and on-air talent would gather in the ring and sing Christmas carols. Other promotions would soon follow suit. The promotion underwent some big changes in 1972. It started promoting matches at the then brand new Omni Coliseum. It also switched its television outlet from its original home, WQXI-TV, to an upstart UHF station, then called WTCG, but later renamed WTBS. The TV show, which was hosted by Gordon Soley, was recorded in one of TBS's studio on West Peachtree Street near 10th Street in Midtown Atlanta. Shows were taped before a small yet enthusiastic live in-studio audience, as were most professional wrestling TV shows in that era. The show featured wrestling matches, plus melodramatic monologues and inter-character confrontations, similar to the programming offered by other territories, including the Northeast-based WWE. TV shows which aired on Saturday evenings were complemented with a Sunday evening edition. In the 1960s and early 1970s, there was a 60-minute wrestling program titled Big Time Wrestling, produced Saturday afternoons at the studio of WA Channel 11 in Atlanta. The NWA program was hosted by Ed Capral, ring announcer Charlie Harbin, and referee Leo Garibaldi. The show was broadcast at various times on WJBF6 in Augusta and at 11 p.m. Saturdays on WTOC 11 in Savannah. The program included interviews with wrestlers pertaining to their upcoming matches. The program for Savannah was taped in Atlanta on Saturday afternoons, then delivered by Greyhound bus to Savannah to be broadcast that night. The new television deal would be one of Gunkel's last decisions. Ray Gunkel died of a heart attack later that year after a match versus Ox Baker in Savannah, Georgia. The death set off some internal problems with Ray's widow, Ann, who had worked closely with Ray and expected to get his share of the promotion, being shut out in favor of Cowboy Bill Watts, with the promotion being renamed Mid-South Sports. And Gunkel decided to start her own promotion outside the National Wrestling Alliance, which she named the All-South Wrestling Alliance. It didn't look good for Mid-South at that point. Most of their wrestlers had gone with Ann, and Ann's promotion had obtained Mid-South television time slot, though both promotions aired on WTBS. After 2 years of conflict, a mediator was called in, Jim Barnett, who had owned promotions in Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Colorado, and even Australia. At this point, Ann's promotion went downhill, being locked out of arena dates, with wrestlers defecting to Mid-South, and Gunkel's All-South Wrestling Alliance folded in 1974. During the mid-1970s, Tim Woods and Johnny Walker, Mr. Wrestling and Mr. Wrestling 2, were one of the best teams in the world. They had a legendary feud with Ole and Gene Anderson. over the Georgia Tag Team titles, as well as the NWA Tag titles, both of which went back and forth between them. Mr. Wrestling would occasionally wrestle without a mask, which would result in a feud between the two. On June 25, 1976, Georgia Championship Wrestling held one of the first ever closed circuit events, a precursor to today's pay-per-view. The War of the Worlds was held at the Omni, showing Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki direct from Tokyo, Japan on big screen. Andre the Giant faced Chuck Wepner direct from Shea Stadium, and 4 matches held live at the Omni, including Jack Briscoe versus Dory Funk Jr., and Bill Watts even faced Dick Slater. The event was reported as being dull and uneventful. Muhammad Ali and Antonio Inoki split $9 million for avoiding each other, which at the time was considered one of sport's biggest ripoffs. The biggest cut, $6 million, went to Muhammad Ali for flicking a couple of undamaging left jabs towards Inoki and absorbing a lot of weak kicks delivered by the challenger to the boxer's shins and posterior. Fans shouted they want their money back. In the match between Andre the Giant and Chuck Wepner, the 33,000 fans at Shea Stadium were awed by the one-sidedness of the mismatch. The bout ended with 1 minute 15 seconds left in the third round, courtesy of a headbutt, followed by the boxer stumbling around before he was tossed out of the ring by the Giant and counted out. Andre the Giant and Chuck Wepner were both reported to have been paid $25,000 each for the match. And live at the Omni, Mike Graham defeated Tony Charles, Ken Mantell fought Skip Young to a draw, Mark Lewin defeated Pac Song, Bill Watts defeated Dick Slater, and Jack Briscoe fought Dory Funk Jr. to a draw. When WTBS went to satellite in 1976, making the station available to cable systems all across the USA, the renamed Georgia Championship Wrestling became the first NWA promotion to be broadcast nationally. Many of the NWA's regional promoters were unhappy, but Barnett claimed since he was only using Georgia-based wrestlers that there was no harm. Whether or not Barnett was in fact taking the promotion national is a matter of dispute. Some wrestlers such as Roddy Piper say that he was in fact doing so. Throughout the 1970s, Georgia Championship Wrestling was one of the main shows that kept the Superstation alive. On January 1st, 1977, Georgia Championship Wrestling held a New Year's Night spectacular at the Omni, where Sue Green won a women's battle royal, the Anderson brothers defeated Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2, the Mighty Igor defeated Abdullah the Butcher by disqualification, Dick Slater defeated Dusty Rhodes by disqualification, Thunderbolt Patterson defeated the Sheik also by disqualification, and Cowboy Bill Watts defeated the Mongolian Stomper. In 1982, Georgia Championship Wrestling changed its main programming name to World Championship Wrestling. Later that year, a 22-year-old Dayton man maintained he beat the Iron Sheik in a weightlifting contest, but was assaulted by the Sheik and never paid his $5,000 reward. Michael W. Haas filed a civil suit in Montgomery County Common Pleas Court in November of 1982, asking for his prize money and $200,000 in compensation for his injuries. In the suit, he named defendants Georgia Championship Wrestling, Turner Broadcasting, Hara Arena, and the Iron Sheik, whose real name to him was unknown. According to the suit, the incident occurred on October 22, 1982, when Haas and his fellow softball team members attended an exhibition of Georgia Championship Wrestling at Hara Arena featuring the Iron Sheik. Somebody stood up at the mic and said the Sheik was the strongest man in the world, said Haas's attorney Carl Kramer. Then, Kramer said, the announcer offered $5,000 to anyone in the audience who could lift more weights than the Sheik. Everyone tried the weights, but Haas, who weighed about 225 pounds and stood 6'2", was able to outdo the Sheik, Kramer explained. The announcer counted the Sheik lifting the weights 5 times, and then counted Haas lifting the weights 6 times. According to the suit, Haas was declared the winner, and the crowd went wild, Kramer said. But the Sheik came across the stage and attacked Haas from behind, hitting him in the head. The Sheik proceeded to kick Haas, who was on the ground by this time, in the ribs and back, Kramer continued. Everyone just thought it was part of the show, except Haas, who wanted compensation for his injuries, which were not described as serious. Unfortunately for Mr. Haas, he died the following year at the age of 24 before it went to trial.